I'm quite certain that the New York Rangers are definitely going to be an active team this offseason as they look to upgrade the roster. But of course, throughout this offseason so far for the team, they have already made some upgrades on a different side of things in the organization, and that is on the coaching side, as they went out there, of course, and fired Peter Laviolette and ended up hiring Mike Sullivan, the former Pittsburgh Penguins head coach, who has obviously done a lot of great things for that organization, but now he is joining the Rangers, and of course, he ended up hiring some of his own assistants as well, which is what we're going to take a look at in today's video, because I think it's obvious the Rangers team needs some upgrades on the player side of things, absolutely. But we have kind of seen an interesting little pattern there over the last two head coaches, you could say, this team has had, where they end up in the first season there with Gerard Gallant and both Peter Laviolette, the two previous coaches of the Rangers. Both of them in their first season with the team ends up taking them all the way to the conference finals. And then both of them in the second season, though, end up, of course, having a bit of a disappointing kind of second season there. Of course, Peter Laviolette's one missing the playoffs is worse than, I would say, losing in Game 7 there to the Devils. Obviously, that's not ideal either, but you still would rather make the playoffs than not for the most part there. So I think it's obvious that this team has kind of gone into this offseason with the intention on not just trying to upgrade the player side of things, but also clearly the coaching side of things as well. So we're going to kind of dive into things here and really take a look, an in-depth look at these three assistant coaches that have been hired by the New York Rangers. And we'll also, before we take a look at those three new assistants though, let's take a look at two of the coaches that actually stayed on this New York Rangers staff there at the NHL level, where we have goalie coach Jeff Malcolm, who was, previously, of course, with the team last season there, and also a skills coach by the name of Christian Himura. He's also remained with the team there. So two guys, Jeff Malcolm and Christian Himura, they're a skills coach and a goalie coach, will both remain with the organization. So, that's fine there, I think. Also, we did see a day or two ago, Dan Muse got hired by the Pittsburgh Penguins to be their next head coach, which I think is pretty interesting there. Of course, he was an assistant coach under Peter Laviolette last season there. He was a former guy, I believe, with the National Development Program there, has kind of done a lot of work with some kind of younger players at the U.S. program and stuff like that. So he could be the right guy possibly for a team like Pittsburgh, who are maybe trying to go into a little bit of a kind of retool/rebuild kind of thing in a younger direction. But let's get right back over onto the Rangers side of things there, which is actually what we care about, of course. And one of the three coaches that was hired by the New York Rangers was actually a former head coach of the team, and that is David Quinn. And I'm honestly not too surprised by this move that, Mike Sullivan obviously made there, and Chris Drury as well, because both Chris Drury and, of course, Mike Sullivan were both a part of, Team USA at the Four Nations Face-Off. And guess who was an assistant coach there at the Four Nations Face-Off tournament for Team USA? Yes, it was David Quinn. So there is a connection there. Obviously, David was also part of this organization previously for 3 seasons there back in 2018 through about 2021. So he has some familiarity already with this organization there, of course, as well. He's done quite a few kind of different coaching things with Team USA as well, like the World Championships, some Olympic stuff, the Four Nations. So he has been kind of bouncing around there quite a bit as a Team USA kind of coach, which obviously Mike Sullivan and Chris Drury have some connections to. So I'm really not surprised by this move at all, and some fans may not love it because of kind of how things went with David Quinn as the Rangers head coach, and obviously he wasn't a phenomenal head coach with the Rangers, and I don't think he's a great NHL head coach, but I do think he can definitely be at least a quality kind of assistant coach. So I don't see why not. He's a guy with a lot of experience being a head coach, obviously, in the AHL, in the NHL now, where he had, like I said, 3 seasons there with the Rangers, but also after the Rangers stint there, had a couple seasons of being the head coach of the San Jose Sharks. So not like he did a phenomenal job there, obviously turned them into a playoff team, but, he has some more experience there working with some younger guys, more of a kind of rebuilding team. So I think that's kind of nice there. And he also spent the last season there as an assistant coach with the Pittsburgh Penguins, of course, under Mike. So it makes a lot of sense that he'd bring him over. And something else that I really do like about David Quinn and kind of adding him into this team is the fact that he has coached many different teams at many different levels. You take a look kind of where he's been in his coaching career. He started things off back in the 90s where he began with Northeastern University as an assistant, then goes over as an assistant to the University of Nebraska-Omaha, also at the NCAA level, then goes over and coaches a bit while staying with Nebraska-Omaha, for the Team USA Women's World Championship team there for a couple seasons, then goes over in the early 2000s to coach some of the kind of Team USA U17 and U18 teams there, and then eventually goes over to Boston University where he's an associate head coach while also being an assistant with the World Junior team there for Team USA, then gets an associate head coaching job there with Boston University. Like, he just has been bouncing around quite a bit. He also got to coach with Lake Erie Monsters in the AHL as a head coach there, then goes over to Colorado Avalanche as an assistant, then goes over back to Boston University, but this time as a full-on head coach, and then, of course, ends up eventually coming over to the Rangers, where he eventually goes to San Jose, then to Pittsburgh, and now he's back to New York. So he's bounced around a lot. He's been to many different leagues, many different teams, many different levels there. Team USA at the U17 level, U18s, the women's top level there, the men's top level, the Olympics, World Championships, the Four Nations. He has coached a lot of hockey at a lot of different levels, which is something I really like to see. So, in my opinion, this is a really great hire by this team. And as an assistant coach, I don't see how this could be a bad hire at all. Next up here, we've got the New York Rangers hiring Joe Sacko. And no, it is not Joe Sakic, in case some of you are getting them mixed up there. But, Joe Sacko here, I think is a pretty decent hire. You take a look kind of what he's done over his coaching career so far, and also had a pretty solid, nice NHL career as well. Spent many, many seasons there, all the way from, way back in the 1990s, like 1990 and 91 there, his first NHL season, all the way down until 2003 when he played in the NHL. So spent many, many seasons playing in the league there, was a pretty solid forward, and he began his coaching career at the pro level back in the early 2000s there in 2005, 2006 with the AHL Team Lowell Lock Monsters as an assistant. Then once again as an assistant in the AHL, goes over to the Albany River Rats the next season, and then after that gets a head coaching job in the AHL once again though, but this time with the Lake Erie Monsters for back-to-back seasons. Then in 2009, 2010 joins the Colorado Avalanche as their head coach, as well as with the Team USA World Championship squad as an assistant coach there. Then has a few more seasons as their head coach, then joins the Buffalo Sabres as an assistant in 2013-14, and then in 2014-15, and then ended up joining the Boston Bruins, where he was from 2014 all the way up until last season there as an assistant coach of the Bruins there. And also, of course, last season there after Jim Montgomery got fired in November, he ended up becoming the interim head coach. But this is the guy who has a lot of experience coaching at the NHL level. He's been a head coach there. He's been an assistant. He's done that both in the AHL as well, being an assistant and a head coach. He's been a head coach and assistant for Team USA back in the early 2010s. They're kind of a while ago, of course, but still was previously a head coach and assistant for Team USA at the World Championship. So he's got some experience there with the Team USA squad. He's obviously got a little bit of experience, being a head coach pretty recently in the NHL there last season, as he got a little bit of a run there after Jim got fired on November 19th. So we'll, of course, have to wait and see how it turns out. But to me, these seem like two pretty solid coaching hires so far. And next up here, we've got a very interesting hire in Tai Hens. And the reason why I say this is because he's not someone who had some crazy long kind of pro career in the NHL or even in the AHL or ECHL or overseas. Like, he didn't have a crazy pro career and ended up becoming a coach at a very low level and then kind of worked his way up. So we'll take a look kind of what I mean there in a second. But first off, for his playing career, he started out playing a couple seasons in the USHL, then went on to play 4 consecutive seasons with Boston College, and his last season there was an assistant captain. Then spent 1 season across 3 different teams in the ECHL, where he spent his only season there in the ECHL, having 59 total games played across 3 different teams there. He ends up putting up a few points, decent numbers, but nothing too incredible there. Obviously doesn't stick at that level. Then goes down to play the next season there in the Central Hockey League, so a very low tier of professional hockey and kind of like the southern states there in like Texas area, I believe, something around there for the most part. So he goes, plays 3 seasons there, doesn't play a whole lot, 56 games played 1 season, then 5, then 9, and then after that goes on to start coaching in 2009-2010, where he begins as an assistant coach with a high school team in Texas. He then goes on to coach a Pee Wee team, which is called the Dallas Alliance Bulldogs, as their head coach. He then goes on in 2014-15 to be a high school head coach there in Colorado for Air Academy High, and then in 2018-19 makes the step up to be the Pittsburgh Penguins skating/skills coach, which is pretty interesting there, as he spends 4 years consecutively being the skating and skills coach. He then in 2022-23 becomes just a skills coach, and then also that season there got promoted up on November 22nd to be an assistant, where he spent the last, few years there, of course, up until now, where he's, of course, now joined the New York Rangers as an assistant. So he's got a pretty weird kind of career there, playing wise and also coaching wise, right? Starting out at a low level of high school hockey there in Texas, then goes to coach a PB team there in Dallas, of course, still in Texas, but then goes to coach a high school team in Colorado, and then 3-4 years later, joins the Pittsburgh Penguins. So it's a pretty weird kind of resume he's got there, but it definitely makes sense there. I mean, obviously a guy like Mike Sullivan there is quite familiar with him. He's also, of course, worked with David Quinn as well with the Penguins last season. So there's some familiarity there with a couple of these guys. All three of them have been coaching at the NHL level for a good amount of time, and we also added in two guys who were former NHL head coaches as well, and both of them, did so not too far away. I mean, obviously, we saw a guy like Joe Sacko do it last season there for a little bit, starting in November after Jim got fired, and then we also, of course, saw David Quinn be the head coach of the San Jose Sharks not terribly long ago as well. So two former NHL head coaches there, another pretty interesting coach as well in Tai Hens. So we'll see what happens, but overall, it definitely seems like a pretty solid staff on paper, and I'm definitely excited to see what this new coaching staff can do with this current group of Rangers. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching today's video. If you have enjoyed, definitely don't forget to click that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content, as I do post every single day. And also, definitely don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on today's video. Do you like these coaching hires? Do you hate them? Do you agree with what I've kind of said here? Do you disagree? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I'll catch you next one, and let's go Rangers.